This is the Cherry XTRFY MX8.2 TKL wireless gaming keyboard, and this has the MX2A switches. I specifically chose the brown switches. So I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $180. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. So in the box we have this instruction sheet and the keyboard itself wrapped in plastic. We also get this USB-A to C cable, which has a iron ferrite on it, and we have the receiver. So you can use this to charge or use it as a wired keyboard, or you can use it as a wireless keyboard. So according to the box, they have a latency of less than 1 millisecond for their wireless technology. You can either connect via the cable via Bluetooth or 2.4 gigahertz wireless. That's this guy here, the 2.4 gigahertz wireless. Now it does say it requires a Windows operating system, so Windows 10 and above. I'm going to be using this with Linux, so I'm hoping that it's just the specialized software that controls the RGB lights, and I can still use it as a regular keyboard with Linux. Alright, so the back of the keyboard has these two kick-up feet, so you can have it at a relatively flat, or you can pop this guy up to give it a more of an angle. Now on the rear here, we have an on-off switch. We have some lights that are cable, battery, Bluetooth, and it looks like a Wi-Fi symbol, but I believe it's their 2.4 gigahertz integrated transmitter. There's right here a USB-C port for a cable. So it says the fast charging interface is not supported. To ensure security, you are advised to connect the interface to a computer. So I'm not sure if those are two statements or one statement. It says it does 5 volts at half an amp, so it may be that they don't support USB-C power delivery here, and you have to use like a cable like they provided that's a USB-A to C that just does standard 5 volt USB charging. To ensure security, connect it to a computer. It might be that they're saying their wireless connectivity is not as secure, so it might be that you need to use the cable for ultimate security. Although I would kind of expect the Bluetooth connection to be relatively secure. So if you like mechanical keys, these feel very nice. I chose the brown ones, which aren't as clicky as some of the others, but you can definitely tell, when the key has been pressed, there is the definite indent, and you can hear it as well. So the key labels are relatively standard. It looks kind of like a gaming font, but if you're using a keyboard like this, you're a touch typist, so you really probably don't need most of these labels. Now they do have some icons on some of these buttons here. So it took me a little while to notice this, but I really disagree with this row of keys and how they're labeled. You notice all of these letters are kind of up and a little just slightly offset to the right. And so to follow that convention, on these keys here, the primary function of the key is on the top, and the secondary shifted function of the key is on the bottom. And that is completely backwards from every other keyboard everywhere. And as a touch typist, you don't notice this too much, but if you're hunting pecker, it might trip you up a little more. Especially things like this. If you push this key, I kind of expect, the bottom thing to activate, but instead it's the equals key. And if you want the plus, you have to say shift equal to get the plus. And maybe that won't annoy you if you are not used to having these things reversed the other way, but it's really annoying for the punctuation characters to all be reversed from kind of every other keyboard in the world, just on that labeling. The keys function exactly the same. If you're touch typing, you'll never notice, but after about a day of usage, that really started to bother me, especially when you're trying to type things for passwords or something, and maybe you don't have it memorized touch typing, so you really have to think, oh, shift is on the bottom, not the top. The instruction sheet is quite large. The English section starts up there, goes through to about there. So the actual instructions in any particular language are kind of 3 columns. Key things to know: when you connect the keyboard via USB cable, you should press the function plus the print screen USB cable icon to enable the USB connection. So when the USB cable battery light lights up on the back of the keyboard, that's the indicator and what that means. So it has 3 Bluetooth connections, so you can connect it up to 3 different devices. You basically turn on the keyboard and press function plus scroll Bluetooth icon to enable the Bluetooth connection. So it'll automatically connect to the last device it was connected to. If it doesn't find it in 30 seconds, it'll move on to the other channels. If all 3 of your channels have already been connected and you want to connect to something, you have to press function and the desired Bluetooth channel key, 1, 2, or 3, for 3 seconds to start pairing with a new device on that channel. So also to switch between devices, you press function and then 1, 2, or 3, not holding for 3 seconds, and it will change to a different device. If you want to use the USB-A port nano receiver, you press function plus the pause button, which has a Wi-Fi symbol, and that will enable the 2.4 gigahertz receiver. So you can switch your keyboard between multiple connections, the cable, Bluetooth, and the 2.4 gigahertz wireless receiver, so that's especially useful if you have multiple computers and you're switching your keyboard between them. So it looks like, although we can use the software to set things up, there are some built-in things with all the backlighting. You can control with the function buttons, you control the brightness, you control the speed, and they have 11 different built-in effects, and you can cycle through them. You can use function spacebar to select a dynamic background color. And you can customize individual keys as well. Or I think it's going to be easiest if you have a Windows computer to use the Chery software. This keyboard does support firmware updates, and so you'll need to use the Chery software to update the firmware. Have a gaming mode, you can press function F9 WinLink, which is actually, I think it's Win Lockout, and it will disable the Windows key, the menu key, and a couple other like Alt F4, Alt Tab, Control Alt Delete, Control Escape. The important resetting the keyboard to factory defaults. Press and hold function plus pause for 5 seconds to reset the keyboard to its factory default settings. In the rare scenario where a hard reset is needed, you can insert a pin or paperclip into the small hole at the bottom of the keyboard and keep pressing for 3 seconds. In addition to restoring factory defaults, Bluetooth pairing information is cleared. So this is the only hole I can find on the bottom. It's unlabeled, but I'm assuming from the manual that that is the super duper reset button. Function F4 turns it on and off. You can adjust the brightness with F5 and F6, and the mode with F12, the speed with F7 and F8. Highlights WASD, in case you didn't know it was a gaming keyboard. All right, that one is flashy. All right, so this mode radiates from wherever you type. This mode just highlights what you're typing. We just have a solid backlight. So this mode does a horizontal flash away from each key as you hit it. This mode does a full keyboard radiate from each key as you hit it. This one just lights up the keys. And this is just a backlight. Okay, I've been very happy with this keyboard. The keycaps feel good, the key press and the switches feel great. There's enough of a nub here on the F and the J to tell where your home row is. I don't like the font used and the positioning of the letters, especially the fact that they decide to put the primary thing up at the top and the shifted secondary thing at the bottom. That's really annoying down on some of these punctuation keys here, because you really, your mind really just thinks, oh, you know, the bottom thing is what's going to happen when I push the key, and the top thing is what happens when I do a shift push of that key, and it's exactly opposite of every other keyboard I've seen. Other than that, just for touch typing, it's great. I've connected it with Bluetooth or the little 2.4 gigahertz dongle to a Linux computer. They both work perfectly fine. Been using it for about a month, and the battery hasn't gone out yet, so I haven't had to charge it again yet. This is a premium keyboard. If you don't like the font or the keycaps, you can replace them, of course, because it's a Cherry switch system. I've been very happy with it. Now, it is a premium keyboard, you know, and it commands that premium price. So I'm sure you could find a keyboard that would work as well, maybe not with, you know, the Cherry MX switches, but I'm sure you could find a keyboard for a quarter of the price that would work as well. But the feel of those switches is really what you're paying for here. You know, there's a lot of flashy lights. I'm not really using those myself. You can use the function key to turn them off or change the mode a little bit. Without the Chery software and Windows, the lights have plenty of functionality just as their pre-default, you know, 10 or so different setups you can use. I'm sure gamers will download the Windows software and play with it and customize things and do different key mappings and lights and all that stuff. But just as a keyboard, it works very well. So, you know, no complaints about the keyboard as a keyboard, other than perhaps, you know, it's a premium keyboard and there is that cost associated with that.